I never thought I'd be the guy to find myself in a situation like this. I'm Mike, a regular guy in my mid-30s, married to Lisa for over 7 years. We met in college and I was instantly drawn to her. Lisa was the life of the party, funny, clever, and absolutely gorgeous. Over the years, I thought we built a solid life together, complete with a cozy home, decent jobs, and even a couple of cats that we've named after characters from our favorite TV show. But lately, things had started to feel off. At first, I chalked it up to the usual ups and downs of a long-term relationship. Lisa had been working late more often, claiming it was due to an important project at work. I supported her, thinking it was just her trying to climb the corporate ladder. But there were little things that bugged me. She started to pick fights over trivial matters, like the way I loaded the dishwasher or how I didn't fold the laundry right. It felt like she was looking for reasons to distance herself from me. One night I was at home, a Friday evening, and Lisa was supposed to be at a work event. But as I sat on the couch scrolling through my phone, I saw a text notification pop up on her phone. It was from a number I didn't recognize. I didn't mean to snoop, but curiosity got the better of me. I opened the message and my heart sank. It was flirty and definitely not from a colleague. I quickly locked the phone and tried to shake off the dread that washed over me. The next day I was still on edge. I decided to take a long walk to clear my head, and as fate would have it, I ran into one of Lisa's coworkers, a guy named Chad. We exchanged pleasantries, and I asked about the project Lisa was working on. To my surprise, he looked uncomfortable. After a moment, he said she hadn't mentioned anything about a project that week, and that she hadn't been in the office much at all. That little piece of information sent alarm bells ringing in my head. When Lisa came home later that evening, I confronted her. "Hey, I heard from Chad that you've been missing work a lot. What's up with that?" I tried to keep my tone casual, but the tension was palpable. Lisa's face went pale for a moment before she recovered. "Oh, it's just a lot of late nights preparing for the upcoming conference. You know how it is." She was lying, and somehow I could feel it in my bones. I decided to dig deeper. I started keeping a closer eye on her phone, her social media, and even her whereabouts. It felt terrible, invasive even, but I had to know the truth. A week later, I made a startling discovery. I'd set up a recording app on my phone to catch a conversation between Lisa and her friend Tara, thinking they might share some light on what was happening. When I played it back, my heart dropped. Lisa was talking about meeting up with someone and it wasn't work-related. The way she laughed, the flirty jokes, the way she described it, it was clear she was having an affair. I was crushed. All of those little signs, the late nights, the fights, her sudden change in behavior, it all made sense now. I felt like I was in a daze, my stomach churning with disbelief and anger. I had been living a lie, and the person I thought I knew had been hiding a different life from me. I spent the next few days in turmoil, flipping between rage and deep sorrow. It was time to confront Lisa with what I knew. I didn't want to show my cards too soon. I needed to be calm and collected. The day of the confrontation came, and I planned every word. I was going to put it all out there, and I wanted her to see the pain her betrayal had caused me. But as I looked in the mirror that morning, I felt a wave of uncertainty. How would she react? Would she deny it? Would she lash out? I felt a storm brewing inside me, and I braced myself for what was to come. I never imagined our conversation would lead us down this path, but the truth was coming out one way or another. The moment Lisa walked through the door, I could feel the tension in the air. It was thick enough to slice through with a knife. She was wearing that tight black dress that I always loved, the one that hugged her curves just right. But today, it only made my anger bubble up more. I had a million thoughts racing through my mind, but I needed to focus. I took a deep breath and steeled myself for the confrontation. "Hey, babe," she said casually, tossing her keys onto the counter. Her voice had that sing-song quality that used to melt my heart, but now it only made my skin crawl. I motioned for her to sit down, and the smile faded from her face. "What's wrong?" "Lisa, we need to talk." "I know what you've been doing," I said, my voice steady but laced with an underlying tremor. Her eyes widened, and for a moment I thought I could see the panic flicker behind them. But then she composed herself, a smirk forming on her lips. "What do you mean?" she asked, feigning innocence. You're starting to sound paranoid. Paranoid? You think I'm paranoid? I leaned forward, feeling the heat of anger in my chest. I know you've been seeing someone else. I heard you on a recording talking to Tara about meeting up with a guy. Don't lie to me. Her expression shifted, and I saw anger flash across her face. You're ridiculous, Mike. You've been snooping through my things. That's low even for you. She crossed her arms, a defensive posture that only fueled my rage. I'm low. You're the one who's been cheating on me. How can you even stand there and act like you're the victim? I fired back, feeling the frustration boil over. This wasn't how I pictured confrontation going. I wanted her to admit it, to confess, but instead she was deflecting. What you heard was taken out of context. I was just joking around, she exclaimed, her voice rising. Tara and I were discussing our love lives, and I shared some crazy stories. It wasn't anything serious. Crazy stories about who? Because it sounds like you're hiding something from me. I felt my heart racing, a mix of disbelief and heartache flooding my system. The woman I thought I knew was unraveling before my eyes. Seriously, Mike, this is ridiculous, she said, her tone icy. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. I love you. Can't we just drop this? Drop this. You think I can just ignore the fact that you might be sleeping with someone else? How can you even say that? I was losing my grip on my emotions. I deserve the truth. Lisa's expression shifted to something colder, a look I had never seen before. You want the truth? Fine, maybe I am seeing someone, but it's not what you think. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. So it is true. I could barely get the words out, the weight of her admission crashing down on me. Yes, but it's complicated. She snapped, her eyes flashing with anger. It's not about you, I just needed something different. You've been so distant and I felt alone. Different, you cheat on me because you felt alone. I couldn't wrap my head around her justification. This is insane, Lisa. You don't just get to betray someone because you're unhappy. You talk about it, you work it out. You don't run to some other guy. Maybe you should have paid more attention to me instead of sitting around on the couch all day. She shot back, her voice now filled with venom. I needed excitement, Mike. You were too busy being safe and boring. Every word felt like a dagger piercing through the last remnants of trust we had built. I stood there, shocked, trying to process the reality of her words. It felt surreal, like I was watching a movie where the characters make horrible decisions and you scream at the screen to stop. Except now I was living it. I turned away from her, taking a moment to breathe and steady myself. I felt like I was going to explode. You know what? I need time to think. I walked past her and into the living room, my mind racing with a whirlwind of thoughts. While I stood there, I felt the sting of betrayal wash over me. My heart felt heavy in my chest. I had devoted years to this relationship, and now it felt like it was crumbling around me. I needed to gather my thoughts, but the emotional impact of what had just happened was overwhelming. As the silence settled between us, I contemplated my next steps. Was I going to let this slide? Was I going to fight for my marriage? Every possibility felt painful and confusing, but one thing was clear. I could go on like this. In that moment, I realized I had a decision to make. I felt the anger boiling, but beneath it all, the sadness lingered like a thick fog. I didn't just want revenge. I wanted closure, clarity, and the chance to reclaim my own happiness. And that's when I started to form a plan in my mind. This wasn't over yet. After the confrontation, I felt like I was in a whirlwind of emotions: anger, betrayal, sadness, and a lingering sense of disbelief. I spent the night tossing and turning, my mind racing. I couldn't shake the image of Lisa with another man from my thoughts. I kept replaying her words over and over. She claimed it was all my fault for not paying attention, but deep down, I knew her infidelity was a choice she made to betray the trust we built together. The next day, I decided I needed to do something. I couldn't just sit back and let the situation unfold without taking charge. I felt an urgency to regain control, and my mind was already brewing a plan for how to confront her again, but this time with a different approach. I wasn't just going to let her manipulate the narrative. I wanted her to understand the pain she had caused me. I reached out to a close friend, Jake, who had been there for me through thick and thin. I needed someone to bounce my thoughts off of, someone who could offer a different perspective. We met at our usual bar, a low-key place where we could grab a drink and talk. I told him everything: how I discovered the affair, the confrontation, and how Lisa tried to deflect blame onto me. "Man, I don't know what to say," Jake said, shaking his head. "You've got to do what's best for you. It's not easy, but you can't just sit back and let her walk all over you." "I know," I replied, feeling the weight of the situation. "I just want to confront her again, but I want her to feel what I felt. I want her to see the damage she's done." "Revenge isn't always the answer, Mike," he cautioned. "But I get it. You need to express your hurt and anger. Just make sure you don't end up doing something you'll regret." That conversation stuck with me. I didn't want to become someone I wasn't, but I also felt a burning need for justice. I wanted to make her understand the impact of her choices. As the days passed, I formulated my plan. I decided to gather concrete evidence of her affair before I confronted her again. Calls, messages, anything I could find to show her that I wasn't just some paranoid husband looking for issues, that I knew exactly what she was doing behind my back. I started tracking Lisa's movements. I didn't want to come off as some creepy stalker, but I kept an eye on her schedule. I found out she was meeting up with Chad, the guy from her office, multiple times a week under the guise of work events. It made my blood boil. I even followed her one evening. It felt wrong, but I had to know. One night, I parked a little way down from a trendy bar that was known to be popular with the younger crowd. It was a place I'd seen Lisa's car parked outside several times. I watched as she arrived, dressed to the nines, a smile on her face that I hadn't seen in weeks. My heart sank as she walked in and was greeted by Chad with a hug. I felt like I was watching a scene from a movie where the betrayed husband uncovers the truth. It was surreal. I waited and watched as they lost themselves in conversation, their chemistry palpable even from a distance. The way they leaned in towards each other, the laughter, it made me sick. This was my wife, my partner, sharing these intimate moments with someone else. After an hour, I had gathered enough evidence. I snapped a few pictures of them together, clinking glasses and looking way too comfortable. I could feel my pulse racing as I returned home, each step heavy with the weight of betrayal. When I got back, I felt a strange mix of anger and sadness. I didn't want to stay in that house any longer with the memories of what once was. I poured myself a drink and sat down, staring at the photos on my phone. I thought about the life we had built together, the plans we had made, and how quickly that could all be destroyed. The next day, I laid out my plan for confrontation. I wanted to get her reaction to the evidence, to see her squirm under the weight of the truth. I could already picture the look on her face when I showed her the photos of her betraying me, laughing and enjoying life with another man. When I finally confronted her again, I was ready. I waited for her to return home, and as soon as she stepped through the door, I knew the moment had come. My heart raced in anticipation, but I steeled myself, determined to stick to my plan. I wanted her to see the truth, the real truth, and I wouldn't back down this time. "Lisa, we need to talk again," I said, my voice steady as I held up my phone. "What now?" she replied, an edge of annoyance in her tone. "Can't you just drop this? Drop it after everything," I countered. "I've got proof, Lisa." I played the recording I had made, the one I had been holding onto for days. I watched her expression change as she heard her own words, the laughter, the flirtation. You weren't supposed to hear that," she stammered, her eyes wide. "Surprise," I said, my voice cold. "Now let's talk about Chad." I could see the panic wash over her face, and for the first time I didn't feel like the fool. I was ready, and I wasn't going to let her twist my emotions anymore. I needed her to understand the full extent of her actions, and I was determined to make her face it head-on. This was going to be my moment of truth. No more lies, no more deceit. I was going to reclaim my dignity. The emotional journey had been exhausting, and I knew this confrontation would be pivotal in determining what our future held. The atmosphere in our living room was thick with tension as I confronted Lisa with the evidence of her betrayal. I could see the gears turning in her mind, her eyes darting between the phone in my hand and my face, trying to gauge how much trouble she was in. The moment was electric, charged with the painful reality of her infidelity. "Mike, please," she finally implored, her voice trembling. "You have to understand that was just a casual conversation. It didn't mean anything. Didn't mean anything." I echoed incredulously, feeling the heat of rage rising again. You're kidding me, right? You're sitting here telling me that flirting with another guy and making plans to meet him means nothing. You think I'm just going to buy that? I was feeling lost. You were so wrapped up in your own world that I felt like I didn't matter anymore. I didn't think you cared. Lisa's voice rose, resonating with false indignation. She was trying to shift the blame back onto me, and it made my blood boil. That's not an excuse to cheat. I shot back, feeling the frustration welling inside me. You could have talked to me, Lisa. You could have expressed how you felt. Instead, you chose to betray our marriage. I didn't choose this, she snapped, her facade cracking. I just wanted to feel wanted again. I didn't think I'd actually develop feelings for him. Her admission hit me like a punch to the gut. Feeling. This wasn't just a fling, this was emotional betrayal. So you did develop feelings for him. You're actually admitting that to me right now. The realization settled in, heavy and suffocating. Yes, but it was a mistake. I never wanted to hurt you, she pleaded, her voice breaking. I thought I could just have some fun and keep things separate. I didn't realize it would go this far. Fun? Is that what you call it, fun? I couldn't help the bitterness that laced my words. You've destroyed everything we built together, our trust, our love, over what? Some fleeting excitement. I took a moment to gather my thoughts. I didn't want to act rashly, but anger coursed through me like wildfire. I needed her to understand the consequences of her actions. Do you even realize how much you've hurt me? I'm standing here trying to pick up the pieces of my life while you're off playing house with some guy. She hung her head, and for a moment I thought I saw genuine regret flash across her face. I'm so sorry, Mike. I didn't mean to hurt you. I felt trapped. I didn't think you'd ever find out. Of course you didn't, I said, my voice softer now. Because you didn't care enough to think about how your actions would affect me. You only thought about yourself. Lisa looked up at me, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I know I messed up. I don't want to lose you. Lose me. I repeated, incredulous. You already have. You made that choice the moment you decided to cheat on me. If you really cared, you wouldn't have gone down this path. I could see the damning wave of realization wash over her. The weight of her decisions was starting to sink in. As much as I wanted her to hurt, I also wanted her to understand the gravity of what she had done. I needed her to see that this wasn't just a trivial matter. It was about trust, respect, and love. Mike, please give me another chance. I'll do anything, she pleaded desperately. I'll go to therapy, I'll change my job, whatever it takes to make this right. The desperation in her voice tugged at my heartstrings, but I couldn't allow myself to be swayed by her pleas. How can I trust you again? You've already shattered that trust into a million pieces. You say you love me now, but how do I know you won't just run to him again the next time you feel trapped? I promise I can fix this, she insisted, her voice trembling, but I had heard enough. I needed to think about my future, and I couldn't simply forgive and forget. I had to protect myself, even if it meant letting go of someone I once loved fiercely. I don't know if I can forgive you, Lisa. I'm not sure this is something we can just fix with therapy or promises, I said, my voice firm. You've broken something that can't be easily mended. Lisa looked devastated, and for a moment I felt a pang of sympathy. But the reality was that I needed to take care of myself first. I think it's best if we take some time apart. I need to figure out what I want and if there's any way we can salvage this. The silence that followed was heavy. Lisa's expression shifted to one of hopelessness, and I could see the tears streaming down her cheeks. You can't be serious. You're actually going to throw away our marriage over this. Throw it away. You've thrown it away, I countered, feeling the pain of betrayal surge within me. I never wanted to be in this position, Lisa, but you've put me here. I can't just pretend everything is fine, and I won't. I walked away, unable to bear the sight of her anymore. I headed to the bedroom, needing space to breathe and think. I felt hollow inside, like a part of me had been ripped away. The emotional impact of everything weighed heavily on me, leaving me feeling raw and exposed. I sank onto the bed, clutching my phone tightly in my hand. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I had a long road ahead of me, one filled with questions, tough decisions, and hopefully, healing. This was my moment of reckoning, and I couldn't shy away from it. As I sat there, I realized that I needed to start thinking about my own happiness. It was time to reclaim my life and begin the journey of healing, even if it meant letting go of someone I once thought I could never live without. The days that followed the confrontation felt like a blur. I had asked Lisa to move out for a while, and she reluctantly agreed, her eyes still red from the tears she'd shed. Watching her pack her things was one of the most painful experiences of my life. I felt like I was losing not just my wife but my best friend and confidant. The weight of our shattered marriage hung heavily in the air, and for the first time in a long time, I felt utterly and completely alone. In the following weeks, I tried to navigate through this new reality. I threw myself into work, hopping to distract myself from the chaos that had become my life. But no matter how much I immersed myself in my job, the pain lingered just beneath the surface. I couldn't escape the memories of us, our laughter, our inside jokes, and the dreams we had shared. It was all gone, and I had to come to terms with that. I spent my evenings in the same house that used to feel so warm and inviting, now transformed into a cold reminder of what I had lost. I found myself scrolling through old photos, reminiscing about the good times, but each image felt like a dagger to my heart, a reminder of the trust that had been so brutally betrayed. One night I decided to reach out to Jake again. I needed a friend, someone who could help me process everything happening. We met at the same bar where we had originally discussed my situation, and I felt a sense of relief wash over me as we settled into our booth. "Hey man, how are you holding up?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "I don't know how to feel. I'm angry, sad, confused, just a mess," I admitted. "I thought we could work things out, but it feels like a mountain of pain is just sitting on my chest." "That's totally understandable," Jake said, nodding. "You went through a major betrayal. It's not something you just shake off. Have you talked to her since she moved out?" "Once," I replied, taking a sip of my drink. "She reached out a few days ago, wanting to meet up. I told her I needed time, but she kept insisting that we could fix this if I just gave her another chance." "And what do you think?" he asked, leaning in closer. "Honestly, I don't think I can trust her again. I keep thinking about how easy it was for her to betray me. It makes me question everything we had. I don't want to be the guy who's constantly second-guessing." I ran my fingers through my hair, frustration bubbling to the surface. "I get it," Jake said, "but don't rush into any decisions. You need to give yourself time to heal. Focus on what makes you happy. It might be helpful to talk to a therapist, too. They can help you process all of this." His suggestion resonated with me. After the shock had worn off, I realized that I needed to work on myself before I could even think about what a future with Lisa would look like, if there was one at all. "You're right. I think I'll look into it. I can't keep living like this, drowning in my own thoughts." "Good. And remember, you're not alone in this. You've got friends who care about you," Jake reassured me. "You'll get through it, I promise." As time went on, I started to feel a flicker of hope. I signed up for therapy and began attending sessions weekly. It was a difficult process, but my therapist helped me navigate my feelings of anger and betrayal. She guided me toward understanding my emotions better and finding healthy coping mechanisms. Slowly, I began to realize that healing wasn't a linear process. It had its ups and downs, and that was okay. In the sessions, I often reflected on my relationship with Lisa. I learned to articulate my feelings, both the good and the bad, and how I had allowed myself to be vulnerable with someone who ultimately didn't respect that vulnerability. But I also recognized the love we had shared, the moments that were genuine before everything fell apart. After a month of this new routine, I decided it was time to reach out to Lisa once more. I wanted to talk, to see if there was any possibility of reconciliation, or if it was time to officially end things. I knew I had to be honest about my feelings, even if it meant facing rejection once more. We agreed to meet at a local cafe, a neutral ground, away from the memories of our home. I arrived early, my heart racing as I tried to prepare myself for whatever conversation lay ahead. I didn't know if we could truly rebuild from the ashes of betrayal, but I wanted to at least find closure. When Lisa arrived, she looked different. There was a softness in her expression, a vulnerability that hadn't been there during our last confrontation. She sat down, her hands fidgeting nervously in her lap. "Hi," she greeted me softly, her voice low. "Hi," I replied, forcing a smile despite the heaviness in my chest. "Thanks for meeting with me." "Of course." I've been thinking a lot about everything, she said, her eyes searching mine for something, maybe understanding or forgiveness. I have too, I admitted, feeling the weight of the conversation pressing down on me. I've been going to therapy trying to work through my feelings. It's been tough. I'm glad to hear that, she said, biting her lip. I've been doing a lot of self-reflection as well. I know I hurt you and I can't express how sorry I am for everything. Her sincerity hit me harder than I expected. I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. I appreciate you saying that, but I need you to understand how deeply your actions affected me. Trust is something that takes time to build and it can shatter in an instant. I don't know if I can ever fully trust you again. Lisa nodded, her eyes glistening with tears. I understand. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I just want you to know that I am committed to working on myself. I've realized how selfish I was. Selfishness is not something you can just fix overnight, I said, my voice steady. I need to know that you're really willing to put in the work if we're going to even consider trying again. I am. I'll do whatever it takes to prove to you that I can be better, she said earnestly. But I also understand if you decide that you want to move on. As we talked, I realized that I had a decision to make, one that could change the course of my life. The emotional scars from her betrayal were still fresh, and while I felt a flicker of hope, I was also cautious. I needed to protect my heart, and I couldn't risk it being broken again. I'm not ready to make any decisions today, I finally said. But I think it's important for both of us to continue working on ourselves, whether together or apart. I need time, and I hope you can respect that. Of course. I'll always respect your feelings, Mike, she said, her voice thick with emotion. As we parted ways, I felt a mix of sadness and relief. The road ahead was uncertain, but I knew I was taking the right steps toward healing, regardless of whether that involved Lisa or not. I had learned so much about myself in this process, and it was time for me to reclaim my happiness, no matter where it led. The weeks that followed my meeting with Lisa were a roller coaster of emotions. I had decided to take the time I needed to figure out what I really wanted, and that meant focusing on my own healing. The therapy sessions were helping me gain clarity, and I felt like I was slowly beginning to rebuild my self-esteem, piece by piece. The journey was far from over, but I was determined to work through it. In the process, I rediscovered parts of myself that I had set aside. During my marriage, I began to engage in activities I had loved before, hiking, painting, and reconnecting with friends I hadn't seen in ages. I spent weekends exploring new coffee shops, taking long walks, and even trying out a few cooking classes. All of it was therapeutic. It allowed me to regain my sense of self and independence. I also kept in touch with Jake, who had become my sounding board through this journey. He reminded me that healing isn't linear and that it was okay to experience a spectrum of feelings. I learned to embrace the good days and the bad ones, understanding that they were all part of the process. One day, about 2 months after my confrontation with Lisa, I received a text from her. It was simple. I hope you're doing well. I've been thinking about you. I stared at my phone for several minutes, contemplating whether to respond. Part of me was still angry and hurt, but another part missed the companionship we once shared. After some deliberation, I replied, I'm doing okay, just trying to focus on myself. The exchange opened the door for a dialogue that felt both tentative and hopeful. Over the next few weeks, we kept in touch through texts and occasional phone calls. Lisa shared updates about her own therapy journey and how she was working on being more self-aware. I could sense a change in her tone. She seemed more reflective, more willing to take responsibility for her actions. Eventually, we agreed to meet once more, this time at a small park we used to frequent during happier times. As I approached the familiar spot, my heart raced with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. I wasn't sure what to expect. Would this be a moment of closure, or was it the start of something new? When I saw her sitting on a bench under a tree, I felt a wave of nostalgia wash over me. Lisa looked different, more mature and grounded. We exchanged awkward pleasantries before settling into conversation. The air was charged with uncertainty, but I could feel that there was a willingness to understand each other. I've been doing a lot of thinking, she said, her voice steady. I know I hurt you, and I don't want to pretend like it didn't happen. But I also know I want to work on myself, whether it's with you or not. I appreciate that, I replied, feeling a flicker of hope. I've been focusing on rebuilding my own life. It's been a journey and I'm still figuring things out. I don't know if we can just jump back into where we left off. I don't expect that, she said, her eyes earnest. I just want to be honest with you about my feelings. I miss you, Mike, I miss us. But I also understand that we need to take it slow. I took a deep breath, weighing my options. Part of me wanted to leap back into the comfort of our relationship, but another part of me cautioned against it. I miss you too, Lisa, but I think we both have a lot of work to do individually before we can even think about being together again. She nodded, her expression hopeful yet grounded. I completely agree. I'm committed to my own growth and I hope you are too. Let's take our time and see where this leads. As we talked, I felt a renewed sense of connection, but it was different this time. It wasn't built on the same foundations of naivety that had initially brought us together, but rather on a shared understanding of our vulnerabilities and the importance of healing. The conversation flowed easily, and we found ourselves laughing, reminiscing about the good times without the weight of betrayal overshadowing everything. It felt refreshing, like we were discovering each other all over again. After our meeting, I walked away feeling lighter, hopeful yet cautious. I wasn't ready to jump into a committed relationship again, but I was open to the idea of rekindling our connection, provided it was built on honesty and trust this time. As the weeks turned into months, we continued to see each other casually, sharing meals, going for walks, and just enjoying each other's company. I noticed subtle changes in Lisa that gave me hope. She seemed more grounded, more committed to her own personal growth. Each encounter was a step toward rebuilding the trust that had been so brutally shattered. I still had moments of doubt, thoughts creeping in about whether she would hurt me again. But I learned to communicate those feelings with her, and she was always receptive, ready to address any concerns I had. In the end, I learned that healing takes time and patience, both with myself and with others. I had come to recognize that it's okay to set boundaries and prioritize my own happiness. I was slowly reclaiming my life and had learned to value my own worth beyond the confines of our marriage. As I reflected on the journey, I realized that while the path had been painful, it had also been transformative. I was starting to find joy in my independence and discovering new aspects of myself that I had long neglected. Whether Lisa and I would end up together again remained to be seen, but I felt a sense of peace for the first time since everything had unraveled. I was no longer just the guy who had been cheated on. I was Mike, a man learning to navigate life, embrace change, and find strength in adversity. And that, after everything, was a victory in itself.